Coming to Arcon's
Yeah.
story, right? Before Arcon, there was A&B, which was born in November of '99, and 2 decades later, it was a 500 plus people strong, and of course a growing company.
Yeah.
Tell us about the early days, how A&B came into existence. What was it that you went?
So like I think I already said that, when I thought about starting something and we thought that maybe let's try and understand the tech quotient of it a little better.
Right.
And what it really involved is us and me particularly going through probably all the manuals in the technology world. So we learned technology the hard way, picked up the SAP manuals, picked up the operating system manuals, picked up the database manuals, because I'm not an engineer, right? And when you're not an engineer, you of course have to do the hard work of understanding it, the most difficult. What are you taught in schools and colleges? Fundamentals, right? So we didn't understand engineering fundamentals. So we needed to understand the engineering fundamentals as well. So I think that was a big difference, which is also a godsend boon in a way, because we understood it the real hard way.
True.
So we understood this, and I went around telling people, in spite of not having anything to do with technology, that, you know what, we practice only in risk advisory for technologies. We try and look at technology controls. We try and look at cybersecurity controls. We try and make sure that technologies work for your organizations. And that's where it started. And somebody one day decided to have faith in us and said, okay, we believe you do something on technology. Why don't you do this for me? And we started, and we put up a team together and started work around it.
True.
And that's where A&B came up. And essentially, we were also looking at how do you kind of give yourself this name, right? So there comes in again the big four. They've got these good letters, and we said, okay, how do you put these names together? So we said, okay, why don't we choose the first character of the dictionary? So A, and it was supposed to be and actually,
Right.
and B, and incidentally it rhymed by my name as well.
Exactly.
But it had nothing to do with that. So the idea was, let's float in assurance and business advisory company or a firm. So that's where it came from.
That's a wonderful coincidence.
Yeah, I don't know. Happy to have that coincidence.
True.
Yeah.
True. So then, from A&B Consulting, in a couple of years, you thought about Arcon, right? So from consulting to cybersecurity, how did that go?
Yeah, so I think that was an interesting journey. So when one good thing that we do, and we did and we still do in A&B is try and think about every 2 years you try and think about either a new industry or you try and think about a new way to do the same thing, right? So when we were doing risk advisory for technology controls, we realized that there was this great opportunity where you need to plug the controls, right? While we were reviewing controls, somebody needs to go and plug it, right? So we thought it was a great opportunity to kind of invest in tools and technologies to help an organization to do it at a much more faster or rapid pace. You kind of review it a year later and come back and say that that's open. By the time you would have already been killed in the cyber world. So we said it's time for us to look at it, because if we don't do that, somebody else will probably come with tools and technologies and our consulting practice would go down. So if you were to ask me, I actually did it in fright to say that, hey, why don't we develop tools and technology to help our consulting practice to grow? So I think that was the underlining theme of, how we kind of stumbled upon technology tools, and I'm so lucky that we did. And then somebody said, how do you coin the company? How do you name the company? What's this company all about? And our business has always been risk advisory. So we said, why don't we now try and put something together which says we do risk control solutions. So we build some great risk control solutions, and risk is a very important element in every business that you do, right? And ideally, people look at control a little negatively. I personally feel controls are meant to drive you faster.
True.
Like a brake of a car, it's not supposed to stop a car, it's supposed to drive the car faster.
True.
Right? And that's why you have brakes. Otherwise, in a car, why would you have a brake? Why would somebody want to buy a car? Correct? So with that thought process, we said, okay, let's build something interesting.
Right. So a very interesting thing that you mentioned. Now, consulting companies are usually not easy to grow, but
Sure.
you did grow it to a very large scale. How or what made this happen?
Yeah, so I think you need a good team, and you need people who have faith in you, and they kind of believe in what you're trying to do or what you think we would do together. It's always together. I mean, it's never that one person can do everything, right? So every time that I would have met people at different times of my journey in the world, in the profession, I would have always try to understand what is it that somebody else wants, and then try and impress upon them that this is where the opportunity is, this is what we're trying to do, and if you were to be with us for a longer time, probably we'll all be successful and probably have some great retirements. And I'm lucky that over a period of time I did find some good people. And I think because we had a good team, we kind of scaled up. And it's really difficult to scale up consulting companies because consulting companies means people, and it's always people dependent. But I think we've had a great team, and then we started to give them the responsibility of running the verticals. So incidentally, we started to have verticals come up in the organization, and that's what the Big Fours and the other large consulting companies do. And the other good thing that we did in the first 5 years is, which is also something interesting, I never took a penny home, right? So again, going back to the old days, mom and dad is feeding you, you've got a place to stay, and you don't need to give money to anybody because you're not married anyways, and you're able to do something. So I didn't take a penny home. So whatever I made, I kept putting in the organization and hiring people in spite of the fact that we didn't have work. For example, it's possible that we would have hired 5 people and I didn't have work for them. But I realized over a period of time, and which is an interesting realization, that if you hire somebody after 3 or 6 months, that somebody would probably convert himself or herself into eventually revenues or dollars for your organization in some or the other way. And surprisingly, it happened. And also, you also need to be at the right time, right place sometimes, right? So for everything to go kind of smooth, and India happens to be that right place at the right time for all of us, even today. And so I would say, cross fingers, things worked out.
In fact, you did mention earlier that Arcon was born out of fright, but the way I see it, I think it's also something that you predicted very early on.
Yeah, so I would have chosen the word fright, but the thought is we are risk professionals, right? So when you're running an organization, you also need to de-risk yourself. And the thought process of trying to create technologies to be able to help you to run your organization was de-risking ourselves. So that de-risking process led to a great product, and that's what I was trying to probably put across, yeah.
So Arcon today is a global brand with presence in the Middle East, Australia, Singapore, Indonesia, and many more countries. Can you tell us how Arcon as a company has grown from where it started to where it has reached today?
So a product company in India way back in, I think, 2006, to think about that was very difficult. Not as if to say that it's easy today, but in 2006, 5, 6 was very difficult because generally product companies have evolved out of countries like United States or Israel. If it's cybersecurity, they are really very good at it. And they have kind of created an ecosystem within their country to be able to think through products, to be able to construct products, and also to be able to sell products. All three are important. Right? We may have great products, you may not be able to sell them, right? You may not be able to bring them to the markets, right? So India, unfortunately, did not have that ecosystem. So our thought process on a product was kind of very, at basics. So we didn't even think of it as a product initially when we started. So when we started, of course, we thought, let's have a technology. Technology was in our minds. But as we started to deep dive and started to understand this technology or the so-called product, we realized that product, if you do a good job, fundamentally the value that it creates is 100 times more if you do it well than what you're doing today, right? So we thought, okay, I think we need to focus on this. So we pulled that out, created this organization, thought about making sure that we put through a so-called product company, learned on the way, but made sure that we kind of traveled. Well, I did travel across the world a lot. Almost, I used to travel almost 25 days in a month for a long time now, until, of course, the COVID came in. And tried to learn from what do these countries or companies abroad do right, which are, we do the same thing, right? Our software does the same thing, right? Our thoughts are the same. Our technology engineers probably are the same. And you will be surprised if you go to any US company or an Israeli company, probably 30-40% people are from India, right? So we said, let's learn bits and pieces and then try and figure out if we can create a great product. And fortunately for us, we did a couple of things right. We built a great technology. We also made sure that we're able to market it, because when you market it, it's not like a box of a pen or a chocolate where you market it, but you need to explain, articulate it, and you need to also maybe evangelize it to say that, hey, if you don't have this, something could go wrong, and this would help you to do things better and control and make sure that you grow your company well. And essentially, our products deal in cybersecurity, so essentially data is important for people, right? So doing all of that, we did a great job in India. We realized one thing, that unfortunately in India, wouldn't want to say this in so many words, but they don't value Indian organizations. Right? Perception is not. It's not that they don't. I'm sure there are great Indian companies and great Indian products, and we drive some good bicycles and motorcycles and cars, and of course all the soaps that we use. All of them are good. But I think maybe in technology, if I were to refer to that, they would probably not look at an Indian company, and maybe truly so because Indian companies did not have the wherewithal at that point in time. And everybody would look at an American company or an Israeli company or whatever. So, and it generally happens when you're in a particular, not only in India, if you're in another country, they always like probably something which is built outside. Like how you say, घर पे था, but तुमने देखा नहीं, you always like something outside, right? So they always like something outside, and of course, they always want to go for the larger brands. Because as somebody would say it, that you don't get fired for buying an IBM, for example. So whenever we used to go out to the market, we used to always be pushed back to say, hey, why would we want to buy your product? Why don't we buy something else which is interesting? Then you try and spend your time, explain to them why are we good, technologically better. They'll end up saying, okay, I don't mind giving you maybe say $10. And ideally they would have given $100 to our American company. So it was a difficult journey, the initial 3 or 4 years. But we happened to demonstrate our capability to some of the large banks, some of the large organizations, and they happened to have faith in us, invested in us, bought the solutions, implemented it. We could see it run very well. And then we thought that if we continue to do this in India, probably we may not be able to fulfill our desires in terms of trying to build a great product, right? A large company was not even on the mind. So we said, let's quickly get out of this country. Get out means try and go to other companies, market it. And fortunately, we went to the first stop, which is the easier one. So you go to Middle East, there's familiarity, a lot of Indians working there. Of course, again, not an easy market to break because the Middle Eastern countries love American products or European products. It's actually tougher, and they're willing to pay for it. True. So they don't even want to negotiate. But fortunately for us, here's where our technology helped us. We brought in great technology, and people really appreciated that fact. And we were paid almost equal to or as good as they would pay for an American product. And that gave us kind of a shot in the arm to say, hey, you know what, we can do this. So we said, okay, somebody said, let's go to the US market. We said, maybe maturity is not so good. So let's try and go to Asia Pacific first. And again, it's a different market, right? Every country there speaks a different language, right? So we went one by one, Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, Philippines, all the way to Japan. And slowly and steadily, we started to build up faith there. People started to appreciate what we have. We invested a lot of money. I would fly to Philippines, Singapore, Malaysia almost every second month. Did participate in a lot of programs, conferences, spoke to a lot of CEOs, CIOs, CISOs. And after 2 or 3 years of our investment and people started to see the familiarity, they realized that, we are, Arcon is serious, they're investing, they've got a good product. And then they started to have some kind of a faith and of course they started to buy our product. And that's the journey that we started to do on the Asia Pacific side. And then And then you do this one by one, you go to Africa, which is again the next best hit. But of course, Africa is a very slow market, and now is the time for us to try and invest in the European and the American market. So that's how we then invested in the European market. So, products started to do well in Europe. And just a year back, just 6 months back actually, because of the COVID, we were delayed. We invested in the US market now, and we've got employees there. And we've started to get some amazing lead. One interesting thing about the US market is they love to hear any kind of technology, right? Company or American company. And the good part is during these years, India itself actually came up the confidence level within countries outside. And people started to see us with a little more respect. They thought that, we could deliver things, which was unlike 10 years back when I traveled for the consulting work. People would not even give me appointments in the United Kingdom. They'll always say, I will say, hey, look, I'm traveling to UK, London, I want to meet you. They'll say, oh, our diaries are full for the next month, right? That also kind of become a little easier. So I'm saying again, a lot of things happening good generally for our country. And again, we did some right things. So we have kind of grown, and literally we are global today, right from Japan to US. And we've kind of understood the needs of people with different culture, different languages, and different styles and different maturity. And we've had fun on the way. Yeah.
Absolutely. Do you think, or can you remember of any key challenge that you faced in this journey of Argon?
So I think I kind of also mentioned you the key challenges in terms of, acceptability, wanting. I think we face more or less similar challenges across different countries. But the most important challenge in some way for everybody would be culture and languages, at least on the Asia Pacific side. On the US side, you can at least talk to people and people listen to you, right? Because fortunately for us, as India, English was a given language or a chosen language. So there is familiarity in terms of what you want to talk and what people understand you, and you're able to converse. But if you go to Japan, how much ever hard you try, people would shy away from you, right? Because they think somewhere in Japan that because they are not able to speak English, they would want to shy away and move out. So that becomes very difficult. How do you tell somebody that, look, I have something great to show you, when he just doesn't know what you're talking to him about, right? So that was, I think, one of the big challenges.
Now, in December of 2015, you mentioned in the Silicon Review that at Arcon, we believe the security in future will no longer be in devices or technology-centric, but contextual-centric. You were absolutely right back then. Can you elaborate on this and give your audience?
Yeah, I think security has always first is computers came in, people didn't think about security. Internet came in, people didn't think about security. They thought about doing something very interesting, right? And security, of course, came in later. And when security came in later, the first reaction to anything which comes in is, how do I protect this machine? Because this machine is getting infected with a virus, right? And later on, it came to technologies, because this machine has this technology, but other machine would have something else. And then there are several other technologies that you would need to protect. And then, of course, you need to protect the network. And then you keep going down deeper, or you keep coming up the application layer. But fundamentally, what does an attacker want, right? What does this so-called cyber attacker or the insider attacker or any malicious user, what does that somebody want? Somebody wants dollars or money, right? So if you're a bank, is there a possibility for you to take money out of somebody's account, right? So there was time when money came to the forefront. Then if you are looking at individual people getting attacked, it is kind of ransomware, or maybe even these interesting ones in the US where they take away your identity. Because there your identity is only a number. Once they've taken it, they kind of create a different identity, and then they're able to do a lot of other stuff. They literally take away your lives. But what it is coming to is that in the future, while it is money and identities, the future is all data dependent, right? And of course, I'm sure there were a lot of people who would have thought about data in the past as well. But I think data is the new oil. I mean, if you're having data, you're able to do so much with that, correct? And data has value, right? Just not your bank balances, of course they have, but data has value. So if you look at these large organizations like Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, they have got humongous amounts of data.
True.
And that's why they are valued at what they are valued at, not this great tools that they're giving, right? Their ability to mine data, create artificial intelligence, all of that values them in the next 10 years. So I believe that data is what is very important to organizations, which it is. And if data is important, then how would the security of the future come into be, right? If that is the question that somebody takes a step back and ask ourselves, right? And if you were to just deep dive, and one would easily realize that while you were protecting technologies and machines, I think it is time for us to protect data, right? And if you want to protect data, the same data could have two different meanings for different people. Or it could have the same meaning for the same person at different times.
Right.
And that's where the contextual layer comes in, right? So it is in what context that you're trying to access that data, right? And that is why, and that's something which is at a little higher level than a simple data. So if I simply take away some piece of data and it doesn't really have too much meaning for the cyber attacker, it doesn't help him, right? But if there is a context in the data and I pick that up, maybe a healthcare record, it has a context,
Right.
and you pick it up, then you have far more, you've kind of cracked it far more, right? And that is why I strongly believe that I think the future of security would of course be data, but contextual data, that is going to be important. And to build tools and technologies to be able to support and protect data in a contextual element is going to be very, very interesting. And that's where you have the artificial intelligence and the machine learning come in. And I think if you're able to do that, then it doesn't matter which machine you're working on, because machine is not a problem. What will happen at the max, machine will go down.
True.
But your data has to be protected. So that's what I thought of. And I think the trends that you see today are more or less kind of, moving towards those direction.
True.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, Arcon, of course, is a successful company. It's a top cybersecurity firm, well known around the world. What are some of the principles that Arcon lives by?
Well, I think we want a great team. We want to make sure that we are fair to a lot of people when it comes to trying and creating this great organization. That's what fun is. For us, if you ask us what is home, home is office.
Right.
Home is where you work, where you create, where you generate all of these good ideas and put them together in your products. And those principles are very important. If you look at our partners, we would have always made sure that none of them go unhappy with us in whatever work that we're trying to do, because I believe businesses working with people, right? And everybody has a desire. You have a desire, I have a desire, all of us. And understanding that is very, very important. So that's one aspect that we think very, very strongly about, right? And fundamentally, it's not even money finally. If you're able to finally protect data, privacy, if I'm able to protect your idea, your data, your privacy, and maybe your being in the future, because if somebody takes away your identity, which is much smaller element of it, but an AI tomorrow takes away the larger portion of your mind, and is misused, right? So maybe even your existence tomorrow. So if you're able to meet these goals and do things like those, I think that kind of, is what the foundation of the company ideally should be, for any company for that matter, but is definitely for our company.
Interesting. Now, what's the road ahead for Arcon in the years to come?
Yeah, so I think we're on this wonderful journey. It's not that we're a huge company and stuff. We're a reasonable size organization. We want to become one of the best in the world. We want to make sure that we live up to those values that I spoke to you about. We want to make sure that we make a difference to your life. We want to make sure we protect your data, your privacy. We want to make sure that we are there when your lives have meaning. And in doing all of that, we believe and we want to make some great tools and technologies so that the people that we have enjoy doing enjoy doing and creating these tools and technologies.
Sure.
And then literally, somebody said that time passes a little fast when you're 30 to 40, and when you're 40 to 50 and 50 to 60, time keeps passing very fast every 10 years, right? So we want to make sure that as time passes by, and this organization continues to evolve and grow within itself, as if to say that it's its own engine, and we have some great people who come here and give great contribution to mankind.
Sure. Well, thank you. That was a wonderful story of Arcon to hear it from you itself.
Thank you, Roshan. Thank you so much. I appreciate that, and I to everybody have a safe time because of the COVIDs, and be safe and protect your data.
Absolutely.
Yeah? Thank you.